All right, everybody, welcome back to part two. I apologize, had some technical difficulties there. For some reason, the saved video file, instead of saving it as one file, this device decided to split it up into two separate files. So I got one file with 46 minutes roughly, and another with like 5 minutes roughly. So there's going to be a part one and part 1.5, and then this will be part two. So what I'm going to do here is get into the second recording. This will be the recording that the prosecutor used in the case against me, the fraudulent case, the trust fraud action, where they tried to say that I caused harm to the community and prevented people from doing their jobs, which is utter nonsense. So you'll hear, I can't talk today. You will hear clearly that in the recording that I'm just simply trying to place my complaint about the noise issue that they have refused. They being police, public servants in the police department, the law director's office, and the municipality itself, all of the public servants, code enforcement, and so on and so forth. That's who they are. So because they've refused to address the issue, they don't want to take my complaint, so then they play games. You'll hear it in the conversation in the recording, where they play games and act like children, and then manipulate the situations. That way they can create more fraudulent actions in the courts, manipulate the courts, and create and perform more trust fraud actions in an attempt to silence me, because that's what this is about. They don't want me complaining. They're very clear about this at this point. They didn't want me complaining anymore. They didn't care if they had an obligation or a responsibility according to the laws that were established that require them to act and address the noise issue. They didn't care about any of that. What they cared about is they didn't want to hear my phone calls anymore. They didn't want to hear me complain about the noise. They didn't give a damn that the noise was bothering me. They didn't want me to bother them. They were too busy to protect the community. So here is a conversation with some of these quota hires at the Zanesville Police Department. The secretaries there in the front, they call themselves dispatchers, that refuse to do their job, at least in this instance. Hopefully they don't treat other people like this, but where there's smoke, there's fire. So if they're treating me like this, more than likely there's other people being treated the same way. So without further ado.
Message as our menu options have changed. Thank you for calling the City of Zanesville Public Safety Building. If this Zanesville Police and Fire, Dispatcher Sheets.
Yeah, I'm calling about this ridiculous noise that you guys seem to not understand that it's your responsibility to address according to Ohio Revised Code 3767. Apparently you guys don't know how to read it. Now keep in mind, I just want to interject real fast. This is the middle of the night. That was the one of the only codes I can remember off the top of my head, because I was extremely tired and exhausted. It's not the only one. This is just one of the codes, Ohio Revised Code 3767, that explains and breaks it down how the city or the municipality can handle the situation with any kind of crimes that originate from outside the city limits. So that was what I was trying to convey. I was so exhausted. I was having a hard time articulating all of that. But I've articulated it so many times in the past that they should have been able to figure that out, and also figure out when they read Ohio Revised Code, I believe it's 715.49, where it talks about allowing the home rule status of the municipalities. It states very clearly in that code that I'm pretty sure it's 715.49 and sections A and B. It talks about that it's the municipality's responsibility to address noise issues even when they come from outside the city limits. I can't remember the exact wording, I'm paraphrasing, but you can read it yourself. So I just wanted to interject that. Keep that in mind while you're listening to this conversation. You still there? Something? Anything? No? Just incompetence? Oh, I hung up. So that was the dispatcher sheets
Message as our
answered and then hung up.
Police and Fire Dispatcher Hamburg.
Yeah, hi, I'm calling about this ridiculous noise coming from these businesses. It's y'all's responsibility as public servants to address the issue. According to Ohio Revised Code 3767. Did you get that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just want to make sure because everybody else seems to hang up and not understand that it's your guys' job and duty and obligation to address this matter. But for some reason, you guys want to act like thugs and harass and intimidate people rather than do your jobs according to the duties and obligations that bind you. If you all would read Ohio Revised Code 3767, it explains that even though the business operators are in the county and you guys are in the city, it explains how you're supposed to handle the situation. But I guess you guys don't know how to do your job, so you guys would rather come out and harass and intimidate me and send a bunch of thugs out to my house to, I guess, silence me because you guys are too incompetent to figure out how to do your guys' job. According to that code, 3767. Does the state of Ohio, does the Ohio Revised Code, does it not apply to you people here in Zanesville? That's a question, by the way. So you're just gonna act like a child and do silent treatment. You're not actually answer the question.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it's kind of hard to file a complaint when they don't listen and they hang up all the time and play these games like this. But what do I know, right?
Please listen to this message as our Zanesville Police and Fire Dispatcher Hamburg.
Yeah, whenever you all want to start paying attention and acting like grown-ups, I would really appreciate it because I'm sick and tired of you guys acting like children here.
Okay, sir, if you want to make a complaint, you can come on station and talk to my supervisor.
No, I don't feel like making a complaint. I just want you guys to do your job. So what I'll do is I'll deal with it in court, and when you guys get proven that you're wrong, you guys can, just have the egg on your face, eat some crow, and do the right thing instead of playing this game and acting like thugs.
I'm not playing a game, sir. I'm here to do my job, and that's what I'm doing.
Well,
You calling and telling me the same thing every night is not going to get you anywhere.
Well, it's what you guys are supposed to do according to the code. What else am I supposed to do besides tell you guys how to do your job according to the code
I don't know.
that binds you?
Obviously, what you're doing is not working.
That's because you guys are too stupid to figure it out.
I am not a stupid person.
Well, prove me wrong then.
I don't have to prove anything to you, and I'm not going to. And I don't have time to sit here and argue with you on the phone.
No, you're a public
I have plenty of
servant.
other things going on that
You
I'm
are a
working on
public
with
servant.
on
Get
the
it
phone.
through your thick skull. You're
I
a
am
public
a civilian
servant.
worker. I am not a public servant. Get it right.
Really? Some people seem to be put in their place.
Please listen to this message as our menu. Please listen to this message as our menu options have changed. Zanesville Police and Fire.
Yeah, why don't you get somebody on the phone who's your supervisor who knows what the hell they're doing? Because apparently you don't know what you're doing.
Okay. I told you if you'd like to talk to the supervisor, you can come on station.
No, you could get one on the phone now.
Okay, hold on just a second.
Now, I want you all to think about this. Throughout this whole thing, even though I've gotten a little bit frustrated and I've gotten direct and curt in my tone with these people, I'm not out of control. I'm not acting ridiculous. I am attempting to file a complaint that these people are refusing to take and that they don't want to hear. They don't care. They don't want to hear the complaint anymore. They don't give a damn that I'm being disturbed at this property and can't get any rest or relaxation at night because these business operators are operating their machinery too loud. That they have a responsibility and a duty to address. Now, this is separate from any other issues, as talked about in the last conversation and that you may become privy to in previous recordings with the AEP situation that initially I was confused about. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, are you still there, sir?
Yeah, I am. Do you have a supervisor?
My supervisor is busy at the moment, but he said that he would come up and see you as soon as he could.
No, I don't want to see him in person because you guys are gonna act like thugs. He can call me on the phone.
We have 9 calls on the board, and once we get this cleared up, then we'll have someone come talk to you.
You can call me on the phone. What part of that don't you understand?
I'm just telling you what he said.
I'm telling you what I want. You guys come to my property, I'm gonna consider trespassing and an act of threat. Don't come to my property. I'm telling you that right now. Do not come to my property. I'm telling you to tell him, do not come to my fucking property. You got that? I'm recording this conversation. I'm telling you, do not come to my property and threaten me and harass me like you did last night. I've got video evidence of that too.
Sir, I'm not saying that we're going to threaten you or harass you. You asked for a supervisor, and I told you that the supervisor is going to come talk to you. He's busy, and he's no longer on station.
Well, you can tell that supervisor to call me on the phone. They come to my property, I'm going to consider it a threat. Do you understand?
I do understand. I told you how this...
Well, and there you have that. That is what they considered me, I guess, obstructing, quote unquote, obstructing official business. I was first attempting to place a complaint about noise. And then because the quota hires, those secretaries in the front that can't apparently handle too much. I mean, they said they had, make all these excuses. Oh, we got 9 calls on the boards and all this stuff. Yeah, they may have. But if they were that busy, why couldn't they have just taken 30 seconds? 30 seconds it would have taken in the beginning, in the very first call. The dispatcher sheets. 30 seconds. She could have taken the complaint, said, okay, thank you for making the complaint. Have a nice night. And left it at that. And I'd have been fine. I wouldn't have escalated it to talk to a supervisor. There wouldn't have been the extra conversation and sidebar. None of that. This is because of their actions. Period. They have a duty and an obligation to perform. I'm not calling them at their personal residence. I'm not calling them on their off time. I'm not calling their personal cell phone, having conversations with them about this. I am calling the organization that is responsible to address the noise issues. So now, because they have done all of this nonsense, this malfeasance, to put it plainly, I mean, words can't even quite explain the long train of usurpations and abuses that these people have enacted towards me for complaining about noise. Because I don't want to hear noise at night. I prefer to sleep with my windows open. I prefer to enjoy the fresh air and the nice evening air. But I can't do that when there's so much noise that it blasts through the house. And even with the noise, even with the windows shut, the noise is so loud that I still hear it, and it keeps me awake. So maybe now you might see some of my frustration and maybe be able to empathize a little bit. I'm not looking for sympathy. But if you have it within yourself to empathize, put yourself in my shoes as much as you possibly can. All I have asked for is peace and quiet at night, that according to the law, it's required. And when it's not, these public servants are required to perform certain actions and duties, whatever it is respectively. If it's a dispatcher, they're required to take the complaint. If it's a officer, they're required to investigate the complaint. If it's a sergeant, they're required to gather all of the complaint evidence and file a report up the chain of command, just like Sergeant Patton was talking about. They have a chain of command just like the military. Blah, 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 blah. Well, I've talked to them all. I've talked to his superiors and their superiors and his superiors' superiors. This is a problem from the bottom to the top. This isn't just a small faction of the municipal organization that's acting unlawfully. This is the entire organization as a whole conspiring together in different forms and functions. And though they might perform certain services and actions that do benefit the public, by doing these other actions, I mean, this is tantamount to terrorism. It'd be no different than a foreign organization like the UN coming in to our country and running around and caging people, stripping them of their rights, threatening their lives, threatening their property, stealing their property. Zanesville Police Department still has my property. They refuse to give it back. So it's be no different than a foreign organization or a foreign government coming into the communities, into the states, into the country, and enacting their own form of policing. It'd be no different because it's all unlawful. They operate under the guise of the authority that they supposedly are given, but it's all through color of law actions. And they, They exaggerate situations and they manipulate situations and they conflate information and they twist information. And like I said before, they play on people's ignorance because people haven't been told or taught who they are. They have no true identity because, I mean, for crying out loud, if I need to break all that down, the family structure, kids growing up without a father or a mother that can teach them identity and who they are, to give them strength and character. Because all of that has been destroyed over the past several generations, which isn't an accident, we find ourselves now in situations where people are completely lost and they're just trying to find their way. And because this information, a lot of it has been occulted, has been hidden from us, and the bar associations are using their agents, these attorneys, quote-unquote attorneys, and quote-unquote prosecutors, and quote-unquote judges, these bozos, shysters. They've manipulated the courts to where only they, a bar registered, licensed attorney or bar member being a judge, because most judges at one point were attorneys and still in aspects are considered attorneys, but they're just acting in a different role. But they all conspire together because they are all part of the bar association, and they created a situation in a way to create a barrier between the general public, us pesky citizens, and making us believe that we don't have any rights and we have to have an attorney, someone else speak for us in a court because we're not smart enough to understand, or comprehend is a better word. We're not smart enough to comprehend what the laws are and what's right from wrong and what should actually be happening. They're doing this in a way because they play. Not only do they play on our ignorance and manipulate a situation so they can get jurisdiction, they get our acceptance by tricking us into saying words like, "Do you understand?" When they ask you, "Do you understand?" they're not asking you if you comprehend what they're saying. They're asking you if you stand under their authority. And because you don't realize this, you think they're asking you, "Do you comprehend what I'm saying?" And any logical person would say, "Well, of course I understand what you're saying." But that right there is giving them jurisdiction. It's giving them authority. Well, I refused to give them that until I was caged for so long and so sleep deprived and in so much pain in my back and legs and from the conditions that I was being held in. I was being forced against my will, being held in, because I called and complained about noise. I was left no other choice. They wouldn't give me another choice. I even asked them, I said, "What other choice do I have?" It's either I comply and say I understand and give them jurisdiction so they can do whatever the hell they want or think they can, or I go back in a cage and I continue to suffer and I continue to deal with more pain and more suffering and not knowing if I'm ever going to see my animals again or my family again and not knowing what's happening to my property and all the other responsibilities that I have. All of that, who cared? They didn't care. They didn't care that I was stressed out because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if my pets were alive or dead. I didn't know if I had a home to go back to. I didn't know what was going on because I was being kept in a cage and I was being isolated from the outside. I had no ability to make phone calls for a period of time. So I had no idea what the hell was going on. So they terrorized me, created a situation to where I feared for my life so much so that I felt like I had no other choice. It was either that or let them, kill me? Continue this and destroy everything, steal everything from me and destroy my life and then keep me in a cage until I die? What good would that be? Well, for them, you can put the pieces of the puzzle together. But for me, none. Absolutely none. In fact, it's the opposite. It was all harm. It was all terrorizing in nature. It was all to create paranoia. It was all to create possibly a psychosis, create situations where because I'm a man and I carry a firearm, they came to my property and pulled their guns. Multiple of these tyrants ambushed me on my property, pulled their guns, and tried to create a what they call suicide by cop, quote unquote, situation. So where they were hoping that I would pull my gun to protect myself, but being so far outnumbered, it would have been a suicide idea to begin with. So, thank God for my training. That I'm not some fool running around with guns. I was in the military. I've been trained how to use weapons. And I've been trained in certain scenarios and so forth. And so that I thank God I was able to fall back on that training and not allow them to murder me and get away with it because, they got qualified immunity. Who cares, really? They were bothered by my phone calls, and that would have justified their shooting me and killing me, right? That's what they would have said. He was a pest. He was bothering us so much with these phone calls. We just had to do something about it. So we went to his house and threatened his life. And of course, they wouldn't say that part. They would say we went to his house and tried to talk to him, and he pulled a gun on us. That's how they would say it. That's how they would present it. They wouldn't say, "Oh, well, we ambushed him in his house and showed up 10 strong with guns and all kinds of weapons pointed at me. All I see is barrels and eyes and waiting for the bang, thinking I'm already dead." Of course, they don't add that part in. No, they came to talk to me, apparently. Yeah, they came flying up into my property, pitching the truck sideways damn near, trying to make it into my driveway, going through the gravel, hot rodding into my driveway there to ambush me in my garage, to threaten my life, to try to get me to react, so that way they could be justified in taking me out. That's what the reality of the situation was. But thank God I had the training to not fall for their trick. thank God that I had that training. So, okay, with all that being said, let's pull up here. So this is Zanesville Municipal Court. Any of you all can go online, look up the Zanesville Municipal Court, Zanesville, Ohio. You can go to the, there's a search records tab that you can click on, and it'll take you to a search query, and you can put in the family name you see at the top of the page there, Killerin. You can spell it however you want. It doesn't matter. It'll pull up the records as long as you use the right letters. And what you see before you is a list. This is a list of all of the court cases that's been registered, I guess, for lack of better terms, within the municipal court in Zanesville, Ohio. Or, excuse me, in the Zanesville Municipal Court. Let me rephrase that. Excuse me. So there at the top, you'll see there's a civil suit in 2019. Then number 2 there, you see the date filed, 12/17/2018. This is in the conversation with Sergeant Patnaud. I was referring to a charge of inducing panic in that whole situation. So this is that charge in that situation that I was referring to there, that initial trust fraud action that they attempted to silence me, terrorize me, and silence me so I wouldn't complain about the noise. This was one of their attempts to manipulate the court and so forth, and so I'll show you that in a minute, but let me go through these other ones real fast, and then I'll break each one down for you all. So then next you'll see, so actually it's not on here. In 2019, in August of 2019, you heard me talk about a little bit in a conversation, record conversations, where Zanesville police officers fed false information to VA medical staff and possibly to staff at the local hospital, Genesis Hospital, in Zanesville, Ohio. They conspired, and what they did was they lied to them, told them that I was paranoid and delusional, schizophrenic, or something like that. I can't remember all the terminologies that they had used on the paperwork that I had seen, but they also had said that I was suicidal. And so that was the first inkling that I had. This is the first bit of information that I had that led me to comprehend that they were trying to push a suicide by cop situation, because they were trying to make it sound like I was already suicidal, which I've never been. So let's see here. What's next? 2020. So that was 2019. So we got 2018, the inducing panic. 2019, they attempted to manipulate the VA and the local hospital to create basically a defamation of character, to make it seem like I was suicidal and schizophrenic and out of my mind, which you can hear in all the recordings and all the conversations. I other than being a little bit frustrated like any normal person would, or excuse me, let me rephrase that, any normal man or woman would. I'm not a person, I'm a man, just to make that clear. I don't care if you understand it or not. So I kind of lost my train of thought. Anyway, so let's go through here. I don't want to get off topic too much. I tend to do that. This has become I've become a little bit too attached to the situation because of how close it is in nature to me. The experience that I've had where my life's been threatened, it tends to stir up a little emotion in me because of the fact of the extreme aggression and egregious violations that these people have performed, just with blatant disregard to my safety, to the community. They shut down the whole road out here multiple times to harass and intimidate me. Didn't care about the rest of the public trying to get through. Making it sound like I'm some kind of serial killer or something like that, for crying out loud. I called and complained about noise. These people are just, they're out of control. So there you see in, let's see, 3, 4, and 5. Here on the list, on the screen, you'll see in July 22nd of 2020, there was three. There's number 3 and number 4. There was 2 cases filed on the 22nd of July, 2020, and then a third case is number 5, date filed. What is that? August 11th of 2020. All of them are for telephone harassment or telecommunications harassment. It's basically the same thing. But they clearly, I mean, you can see right there, they can't even put the same information on the page. They just use different wording willy-nilly, just whatever they feel like. It doesn't matter. They don't have any standards. So this was all created off of the same situation. It was one situation, much like the conversation that you just listened to with the quota hire secretaries that kept hanging up the phone and playing games. It was a situation like that they used and manipulated to their advantage to attempt to create these cases, these 3 separate cases based off of the one instance, of one situation. Instead of doing 3 charges or 3 counts or however they do it like that, they created 3 separate cases to make it even that much more harder for me to overcome it. They were just creating hurdles. It had nothing to do with right from wrong or justice or whatever you want to call it. They were just, this is bullying. They were using their position of so-called authority and their position because they're supported by other thugs that are willing to use threats of violence and on people's lives and property. They're protected by this gang, and so they feel like they can do this. So they created 3 separate cases off of the same situation, just with one situation, and they created the 3 separate charges to create the 3 separate cases. So I'll break those down in a minute. And then you can see there on number 6, in June 4th, 2021, I got the dates a little bit wrong earlier in this recording, or one of the last recordings. I thought off the top of my head it was the 15th of June, but I believe that was when they manipulated and finagled the courts to get the indictment. So they came and abducted me and threatened my life, and they tried to push for a suicide by cop situation, and they stole my property, my gun. Even though I didn't touch it, it was on my side, it was in my hip. I didn't threaten them in any way. They came flying up on my property, threatened me. I already went through all that. So that was June 4th of 2021. Now, keep in mind that conversation with Sergeant Patnod, not the last conversation or recording, but the first one in this series, in part 1 of this series, that was in May. If I remember correctly, I believe it was the 22nd of May of 2021. And here we are, just about, 22nd, it's 31 days in May, so that would be 9 days roughly. We'll say 8 days, because we were already into the 22nd. So, 8 days, so 12 days. Just shy of 2 weeks later, they throw, after having that conversation that you heard that I had with Sergeant Patnod, where he acknowledged what I was talking about, he admitted it, he acknowledged it. He admitted to the treason. He said it himself. So here we are, 12 days later, give or take. Number 6 and number 7. Obstructing of official business, or obstruction of official business, was the charge on number 6. And that was a felony. That's what they call a felony. And in number 7, it was another charge of telecommunications harassment, just like these other ones up here, 3, 4, and 5, that they had attempted before, that they had utterly failed. So those are the cases there that they came at me with. Let's see, if I remember correctly, at one point I don't remember which one it was. I think it's this one down here, number 8. January 26th of 2021. that was when I filed my documents, my contracts. See, I had sent out contracts via registered mail, return receipt to Don Mason and 4 other representatives of the Zanesville Municipal Corporation and the police department, outlining the malfeasance, outlining the fraud, outlining the damages that they caused, and also providing a fee and fine schedule for any damages that they caused further after the fact by further actions. And this was, of course, prior to the situation in middle of 2021. So this was everything prior to January of 2021. I had addressed in these documents, well, just about everything. And then also provided, like I said, a fee and fine schedule for the amount of specific damage amounts, monies to be paid for damages for specific actions. And at some point, I'll break those documents down for you and show you what those documents look like. But I sent those out registered mail. I got the return receipt card back. So at that point, according to the postal rule, we had an established contract because they accepted the contract, and at that point, once they signed for it and accepted it, that began the clock because I gave them a time frame to respond. I want to say it was 30 days. I can't remember off the top of my head. Like I said, I'll go over those documents at some point, and so you can see. But it doesn't really matter what the time frame is. I gave them a time frame to respond to the affidavits and to the documents, to rebut the evidence, to rebut my affidavits line by line. If each line of information that I had, each fact that I had put in the affidavit, I gave them ample opportunity. Each of these individuals, I gave them ample opportunity to respond, to give them an opportunity to rebut and refute the claim, or claims, excuse me. They failed. They didn't respond. So at that point, we have legally binding contracts, and they are legally bound to those contracts and to the damages caused and to further damages caused. So at this point, I have so many contracts that I need to write, and I am writing, and so on and so forth. I'm swamped. These people and their malfeasance and incompetence and tomfoolery, they give me a lot to do, but it'll pay off in the end. Because I've already got the established contracts that they've defaulted on. Acquiescence by silence is tacit agreement, tacit approval. I not only gave them an opportunity to respond, but when I filed the paperwork in the court there, you see January 26th of 2021, I not only filed it in the municipal court, I also filed it in the county court to give all parties involved and all respondents specifically outlined in the documents, I gave them all a second opportunity to respond through the court, and they failed. And so now we have a validation of the contracts. So not only do I have the initial agreement and contract and bond, but now that's been essentially sealed because they failed to respond to the documents that were filed in the civil case and through that administrative procedure. So now I have twice they've defaulted on these contracts, and so now this is not including the situation from the middle of 2021 and June 4th, 2021, number 6 and number 7 on the list there. This does not include the damages caused from that trust fraud action and that fraudulent actions and that terrorizing actions that they've performed against me at that point. So it will pretty much double, possibly triple, the damages that were caused and the damages that they're going to be required to pay. Now, here's the beautiful thing. I don't need to really do anything besides write the contracts, write the documents. And what I'm going to do is, because I'm the beneficiary, there's only so much I can do being the beneficiary. And so what I'm planning on doing is creating the documents based off the initial contracts, which I was given permission in the contracts. That was stated very clearly and explicitly in the contracts that they're basically giving me power of attorney. If I remember correctly, I think you even used the terminology power of attorney to create any documents necessary to collect the damages. So at this point, it'll be a matter of writing these contracts and contracting with with my trustees, and extending the contracts to my trustees and allowing them to execute the trusts. I'm getting mixed up here. I apologize. I'm going to write the contracts and extend the contracts to the trustee, so that way the trustee will perform the duties necessary to create the liens to lien the city of Zanesville, the police department, the Court of Common Pleas, Muskingum County Municipal Corporation, the state of Ohio, and all of the agents acting on behalf of those entities that were involved in these situations. They more than likely, at some point in time, it may take a little bit of time for me to get around to all of them, but they will all be liened for the damages, because clearly in the court system, well, for me anyways, you may not realize it, but in the court systems, they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. So the municipal court is not going to charge, or more than likely, they're not going to charge an officer of that municipality's police department, because it's those police officers that are bringing in the people that they're creating the trust fraud actions and that they're benefiting from by profits that are created from the bonds and everything that's created off of these fraudulent charges, which most of all are. The reality of the situation is, and don't take my word for it, you can look it up for yourself, there's only a true crime when there is an injured party. When someone, either their quote-unquote person is injured or their property is injured. That's the only time there's an actual crime. That's the only time that they can have any kind of authority. But even still, it's supposed to be limited. They're not supposed to be a paramilitary group running around shooting people or attempting to shoot people because they called and complained about noise. I mean, what the hell is wrong with these people? It's bad enough to deal with the noise, let alone dealing with thugs that want to run around with guns and threaten to kill people if they don't comply with their unlawful orders. So those actions is what's going to make those individuals responsible individually. If it comes down to it, if the trustee decides that they want to lien those individuals and take everything from them, take their home, take their cars, take their savings, seize all of their assets, well, that's out of my hands at that point. That's up to the trustee. If that's what they decide to do, that's what they decide to do. These people made their bed. They're going to lay in it. They should have thought about what they were doing ahead of time. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So let me break these down real quick. I'm going to show you 2018. This was the initial trust fraud action that I was extremely naive at this time. Didn't know what was going on. Didn't know how to handle the courts. I didn't know anything. I wasn't privy to any of this. I'd never been involved with the courts or involved with law enforcement in this context or this manner. I never had any issues before because I don't do stupid stuff. I guess that's relative. I guess if you consider calling and complaining about disturbing noise stupid, then take that for what it's worth, I guess. But in my book, you're an idiot if you think that. Anyways, I digress. So you can see here. Let me scroll down a little bit. I went through the whole thing. Says that I pled not guilty. I did not plead. Actually, you know what? Actually, at this point, I think I did, because I was so naive. I thought that I had to. And so in this first situation here, I went through the thing like went through the situation, went through the hearing like an everyday man and woman nowadays would. Just completely ignorant of the situation, ignorant of the reality, not realizing that they're tricking and playing tricks and just trying to create a situation that they can profit from. Under the guise of justice, under the guise of law and order and all that shit. I wish it was honest. I wish it was real, because then they would be held to standards themselves. But it's all just it's a myth. It's an idea to dupe people, to trick people into thinking that there's some kind of civilization here. But, look around you.